Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabados of Delmar, together with my co-host, Mark Warner, Joe, Statewide News Service, jbiztechphilly.com. And as you can see here, columnist for the Jewish Press.
Right, and I'm having a lot of fun with all three assignments. And the column in the Jewish Press is called Albany Beat, and this is the column. The latest column is about pay raises with legislators and for the administration and commissioners. So, you know, I have a lot of fun writing about a lot of different topics. And someone who's with us is a writer in his own right, Steve Lobel, author of Failing My Way to Success. Welcome to the Jewish View, Steve. I've known you in the Albany community for decades.
Decades is right, yes.
And you haven't changed. So.
Wow, thank you. Flattery will get you everywhere.
Okay. Well, welcome to the Jewish View. I think that this is a very interesting book, and we're looking forward to talking to you
over here. Yeah, you failed in business. I mean, it seems like from the theme.
I have indeed, yes.
Really?
In business and in other aspects of life, but the failure is part of all of our lives. And the book really came out of a series of lectures that I was doing. It started with undergrad students learning about entrepreneurship at UAlbany.
You're a professor there?
I'm not. Well, I was actually an adjunct professor for many years in one of my careers. But I was asked by a professor many years ago, over 30 years ago, to talk to his class about my experience in business. I had just, at that time, just opened my first of my own businesses. It was called the Cheese Connection. And he was a customer and liked what we were doing and asked me to talk to his class. So I liked
what you were doing too at the Cheese Connection.
So what, was that a failure, the Cheese Connection?
It was not, actually. In its first iteration,
yeah, I know a lot of people went there to think,
well, that was that particular career lasted 11 years, and it was an iteration of multiple stores. We started out with a tiny store in downtown Albany, then expanded the year later to a larger store in Stuyvesant Plaza, and then ultimately an even larger store in Stuyvesant Plaza called Cowan and Lobel, 1988.
And who was
Cowan was an angel investor who was also a customer of the store and liked what we were doing, and he had a very positive business event in his life and sold a business he had developed and was sitting on lots of money. We shared the same accountant, and I was looking to expand my business.
So that's why he got top billing.
And well, actually, you know, it was the right flow of names.
Right, I know.
Truthfully.
That's how Lobel and Cowan didn't have the right.
No, it doesn't have the same flow. Cowan and Lobel was.
So why did you close up after 11 years?
Well, I didn't close it.
Failure.
Well, there were many failures along the way. I mean, I had to remortgage my house 3 times to keep the business alive. It was not a straight line to success. In other words, my first investor in the first Cheese Connection bailed out on me within the first year of operations, and we had to scramble to keep the company alive and realized we were in the wrong location in downtown Albany, and then had an opportunity to move to Stuyvesant Plaza, and I couldn't find a bank to finance me, and we went through a lot of process to get some financing for that, and we built that store, and then it wasn't operating profitably, so I had to learn how to not just how to market and market the product that we sold, but I had to change how we did business, and I had to learn finance that I wasn't really knowledgeable about, and it was a long, hard struggle to get to the point where then Cowan came along with lots of money and ideas to build a great business, and we did together. His money and my ideas and my creativity, and we built a very large and what was known as very successful store for many years. But the partnership failed after only 2.5 years. So just imagine this. I started a business from scratch. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into it and all my life savings. And we built it and we got it established. I actually got fired from my day job. I had another job. The cheese business was only intended to be a part-time venture, but as I was in the process of building the first store, I, through my own fault, got myself fired from my day job.
Which was?
It was at Stuyvesant, State Photo Supply.
Okay.
We had stores, 6 stores throughout the region.
Okay.
And one of them had been in Stuyvesant Plaza, which got me acquainted with that shopping center. But yeah, so I had 2 children at home. My wife stayed at home raising our children until they were in school. So we had one income, and I managed to lose it at a time when I was now trying to start another company.
And is that when you declared bankruptcy? Or?
No, that came many, many years later, actually. Okay. The food business was quite ultimately successful, but there were aspects of it that involved failure along the way. So I built it on my own. I attracted some investment, and it took us about 8 years to really get the business to where it was operating profitably. Then Cowan came along with lots of money and invested in us, and we built this magnificent store. And then he and I, the first year was great, the honeymoon, and then we started to disagree on aspects of how the business should be run. Mm-hmm. And so we opened the store in October of 1988. And January 1st of 1991, I was literally forced out of my own business. So I basically was forced to sell the remaining part of my interest to Cowan. I really didn't have a choice in the matter. And then found myself, without a job. And I didn't make enough money in that deal to support my family. My wife had also worked in the business, and as a result of my losing my ownership, she lost a job. So the 2 of us, we had children about to go to college. Wow. And we lost our income. So I was kind of desperate for another business, and with a friend, we sought out a business broker. We found a business in screen printing and embroidery, T-shirts, caps. In Saratoga, and against better advice of all our advisors, legal and financial and otherwise, we were determined to buy the business, and I was quite arrogant in my self-belief that I could fix anything. It was a good business but had some trouble, and we just didn't have enough capital. We threw everything I had into it, and it took 20 months to lose 20 years of wealth that I had accumulated, and forced us into personal bankruptcy. That was in 1993. And we were literally padlocked out of a factory. 18 people sadly lost their jobs in Wilton. Felt very badly about that. And it was quite a challenge that we faced. Within 3 weeks of being padlocked out of the factory and our business, and being forced into this terrible financial trauma, I talked Pat Swigert, the president of the State University of New York, into considering me as their first ever director of marketing. Oh. Because I had been very active. I'm an alum of the University at Albany. That's where I met my beautiful wife, Vivian, and had very warm regard and high regard for the University at Albany. I was also on their foundation board, so I knew a lot of the players. And I realized in those days that the university did not have the full respect of the business community for many different reasons, too complex to get into. But I thought that I could be an effective liaison between the business community and the University at Albany.
Now, why'd you go? Now, Patrick Swigert, he was president.
He was president at UAlbany at the time.
That's correct. Okay, not chancellor, but he was president.
He was president of State University of New York at Albany, the Albany campus.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where you were head of marketing for the UAlbany campus.
Basically, we invented a position.
Right.
There was no such position.
Right. But I'm just saying it wasn't for the whole SUNY system.
No,
it was just for that campus.
That campus.
This area, right.
That's right.
Oh, that's very interesting.
That gave me a very interesting opportunity. First of all, it was a warm and nurturing place to be. On my bucket list was teaching at the college level, because I love to teach.
And how old were you when you were when you convinced him to?
I was born in 1948, so that was 1993. So
okay, do the math.
I was late 40s.
Late 40, 45. Or
yeah, late 40s when that happened, and literally totally bankrupt. I mean, we were penniless. We managed to keep our home only because I had 3 mortgages on the house, and there was no equity left in it. We were in dire straits. The job at the university provided, number one, a reasonable income for me, but even more than that, it enabled me to recover lost self-esteem. That was really a devastating loss to me personally. And I realized that I was really solely to blame for my problems. It was, I don't wish to point the finger at anybody else. It was nobody's fault but my own. And
did you find you had to go to counseling to
I did indeed,
yes,
yeah. Of course. Yes.
And how did that help you? Was that something that
considerably,
got you
yes, it got me through. I've had the great benefit of assistance from many different mentors. I have one now, Marvin Friedman, who's been a great friend and mentor for over 40 years. Now a colleague. I ultimately joined his insurance agency. So for 20 years, he's been a true mentor in the insurance business, but also just a fine example.
How did you go from the university, you may have skipped one step, go from the university to the insurance?
Yeah, good question.
Well, there's something in between too, isn't there?
No. Well, it was, so it was, I actually went to law school for a year and flunked out of law school.
Yeah.
That was another failure. Then I did the 9 years with State Photo Supply, then opened the Cheese Connection and built it into Cowan and Lobel, then Impress, which was the screen printing business, and from there went to the University at Albany, where I started as the interim director of marketing. And that led to an opportunity to become the director of Alumni Affairs. And I took advantage of that role, and that was a terrific role. I got to work with over 100,000 alumni and alumnae from the University at Albany. I had a terrific staff there, and we ran Alumni House, and it was just a great time. I also became an adjunct professor.
Were you there just before this current director, or?
No, there were several directors before that. I replaced Carol Livingston, who was the director of Alumni Affairs, and then she moved with her husband to another university.
Who's in charge of Alumni Affairs now?
I should know his name, but I don't.
Okay, so
I just skipped my mind.
So you're still going into the
So,
insurance?
because, I mean, let me tell you, my image of you has been of only success.
Yeah.
Okay, I have an image of you as, wow, Cowan and Lobel, great business. Impress, I was impressed. And then, I just, all the backstory was shocking to me when I heard about it. I mean, because, I said, wow, here's, I looked up to you. I mean, it was one of these things that, because I come from the same mold as you as an entrepreneur. I mean, I started my own business right out of college. I went to University at Albany, and I worked at the Capitol. I did all the reporting on my own and writing and all that. And then all of a sudden, I see what you were doing, and I'm saying, wow, this is great. And then you were involved with, the UAlbany piece, and I was involved with alumni stuff also. Yes. For better or for worse, but I was involved with that. I didn't necessarily. I don't get along well with bureaucracy, and that's.
I've learned.
Yes, we both. I have to still learn, but every day I'm trying to learn. And but I always saw you as someone who was the epitome of success, and it's shocking to you. Because I see you went from, and then you all of a sudden you cropped up at this, at the university, and I was like, wow, it's like. And I remember the day you gave me your card and you said, call me or whatever, And the next thing I know, then you're over at Alumni Affairs. And I put together this alumni event for the college radio station, WCDB, WSUA.
Oh, sure, yes.
And that attracted over 200 people, and I thought that would give Alumni Affairs an idea of how to better gather alumni for homecoming weekend. It fell on deaf ears. I mean, this was one of the most successful. We attracted 200 alumni from 11 states to come in for this radio reunion, and went down memory lane, and then everything just kind of fell apart. But, that's one of those things with bureaucracy and institutions.
It's always a challenge when you're dealing with lots of different people and different agendas and so forth.
Exactly, and that's what it was. And it was also at the time, I think that there was a 90, maybe it was 90, 93, that there was a fight over who controls the list, the powerful list. Is it the Alumni Association? Is it the Alumni House? Is it the foundation? Is it,
sure, right.
And everyone didn't want, they were always afraid, oh, you're fundraising with the same list that we're fundraising at the same time, and they were, territorial about it.
Well, at that time, without being apologetic, but the truth of the matter is that fundraising was very new to the State University at Albany, just because of the nature of the way it was built, and it started out as a state teachers college, and there was never an impetus for fundraising. And then when, of course, the State University system was developed, it was funded. Most of their needs were funded by the state legislature, and so there was no history of philanthropic activity amongst alumni. So there was a lot to be learned. They've since come a long, long way, and they're very effective now these days.
I offered my talents early on, and they just rejected it as an alum. And maybe it was because of my personality, because I don't get along with bureaucracy. I'm more of an Elaine Caballeros type, where let's do it, let's get it done. We know what we want to do. Forget this getting 3 estimates and trying to figure this out, and what's this other garbage here?
Well,
let's just do it. We got to get it done.
And we see the potential results of that kind of challenge.
So maybe it was better they rejected me. I stayed out of jail.
How did you get into the insurance?
Well, as I said, the founder of Anchor Agency, Marvin Friedman, has been a friend and mentor for over 40 years. One of the first people that we met, my wife, actually, I met him through my wife, who babysat for his children. And then we were sort of adopted by Marvin and a group of friends of his, lovely people, and they invited us to their parties, and they welcomed us to Albany. And so we decided to stay and make our life here in Albany.
But how did you go from being with Alumni Affairs and then all of a sudden saying, we've had enough of this, and now I want to do insurance?
In my heart of hearts, I'm an entrepreneur.
Right.
Okay, the job that I had at the university, I absolutely loved and would have loved to have stayed. I have a bachelor's degree in English.
Right.
I was in a position, and I actually had to survive a national search to earn the full-time position as Assistant Vice President for Alumni Affairs.
Okay.
But I still just had a bachelor's degree. So I got the job, I got the assignment, but I realized that if I were to advance at all at the academy, I would need better credentials, better academic credentials. I got a job as an adjunct professor, started it in a freshman marketing class, and ended up in teaching marketing management in the MBA program, and loved it. I started looking at how do I get more academic credentials, either an MBA or a PhD, and I was very serious about it. And just by random, always being close to Marvin, we were having breakfast one day and just discussing life and business and what have you.
He said, why don't you come work for me?
Well, he didn't say that directly, but out of the conversation came the realization that perhaps there was an opportunity here for me. I was also looking at the university just because I did want to go further with my life. I wanted to do other things and have more responsibility. And so it was the university, which I loved. What was tugging at me is the world of business, which is really, after all, a business person. And my conversation with Marvin spelled out to both of us that perhaps there was a potential fit for me in his insurance agency and within the world of insurance. Now, selling insurance, frankly, was probably the last thing on my mind as a way to make a living, by far. However, when I started thinking about it with some maturity, I was now in my late 40s, and started analyzing and thinking about, one of the things I talk about in the book is, it's important to know yourself. What are your skill sets? What are your core competencies? What do you do extremely well that maybe puts you ahead of the crowd? And the bottom line for me is, I'm very good at building relationships. I have integrity, I'm trusted, and that's the core values that are important for insurance. Plus, because of my business history and all the people that I've come across, and a lot had to do with my philanthropic activity, Board of Jewish Family Services, Board of the Federation, and so forth. I was very active in the philanthropic community. I realized that maybe this has some potential, and following in Marvin's footsteps was something that I felt was perhaps a good path.
Which is ironic, because here you are at the bottom of the financial, you don't have any money in your barrel, in your money barrel, and you're with philanthropic agencies on volunteer boards.
Yes.
Because you have
interesting,
time
isn't it?
to do it, but you could raise the money for other groups, but not for yourself.
That's correct. Yes.
And I find that to be quite
and to the credit of everybody in Albany, they really didn't hold my business failure against me. They were very embracing.
Did they know?
Absolutely, it was very public.
I didn't know.
Well, it was pretty public. It was published in the
Business Review?
Business Review, Jewish World. I mean, you have to.
Jewish World published something negative?
Well,
I'm sorry, about failing?
It has to be published. Bankruptcies have to be published in the.
No, but those are so small. I mean, you don't.
Yeah,
really
but
look at
yeah, it was out there, and so yeah, that was an interesting challenge.
Like I said, and then when I saw you, heading the Albany Symphony, and how your relationship with, you're a member of Congregation Beth Emet, so I'm presuming David Allen Miller is there.
David Allen Miller.
I presume that's how you got
Rabbi
to know
Speen is on the board of the symphony as well. And
so I'm presuming that's how you made that connection, or whatever, with getting involved with that.
Well, it actually started with
aside from the love of classical music.
I was drafted to the symphony board in 1981 by Peter Kumani. So
oh my gosh, I'm sorry you mentioned that name.
I was a child. Well, high regard.
Stephen Mark.
Aside from Republican politics, yes, okay.
I want to frame this for everybody. I mean, it's a beautiful story, but there's two incredible lessons that, to summarize, because people go out and they try to do something. Number one, I tried something, I failed. I guess I'm no good, forget it.
Absolutely.
That's one thing that has to be framed, that, listen, you fail and fail. I guess that's the theme of your book, Failing My Way to Success.
Correct.
But, the way to change you also. It's like, I'm going to keep on knocking my head into the wall. If it's not business, then maybe it's university. So maybe change and be adaptive. And because I know I meet a lot of people, and, you're not the only one, of course, who's failed. But a lot of people have gone down, and they do get depressed, and there's something. Keep rolling. You're learning from your success. I think that's bring out the common point, the major point for our viewers, because I think it's an incredible lesson that a lot of people have to learn.
That's the key. And actually, you would ask, why would I expose all my failures for the world to see? What's the importance of that? Well, a couple of things. Number one, the true lessons in life for me, and I think for most people, are when you succeed, it's hard to figure out why you succeeded. And sometimes you wonder, am I worthy of the success? When you fail, you know every detail, every aspect of what led to that failure. So the true lessons in life for me, and I think for others, are in the failure. The key is to use it as an educational tool. I listened to a speaker once named Zig Ziglar, motivational speaker, and I don't normally listen to a lot of that stuff. But he said one sentence that really made a big difference to me. He said, Failure is an event, it's not a person. And once I could separate myself as a person from the failure as an event, I realized that my path to success, the night we were padlocked out of my factory, I had an anxiety attack. I felt like I was drowning, and it lasted for 8 hours. I thought I would not wake up in the morning. I didn't think I was going to live through the night. I woke up the next morning, and it was spring, and the sun was shining, and I said, you know, I got to get out of this mess. And the only way to do it is one foot in front of the other. And make each day going forward incrementally, even fractionally better than the day that went before it. And that's what I sought to do. It was that evening that I went to the fundraiser, met the president of the University at Albany, and literally solidified my ability to get that job. It taught me about myself. The other thing that I have to say that's really helped me and saved me was, and you mentioned it briefly, even in the depths of my failure when I was penniless, I gave back to the community philanthropically. You can be a philanthropist and be broke, I think. It's what you give of yourself to others. It could be time, it could be money, it could be influence, whatever it happens to be, there's always an opportunity to give back. And fundamental to everything I've done was a lesson I learned at Jewish Family Services, which from Anshel Weiss, Tikkun Olam. The whole concept that if you can make the life of one person in this world better, it's the equivalent to saving the world. I really believe in that.
That's really incredible what you're saying, and I'm actually going to learn from you. I'm going to, hopefully you didn't copyright everything, because I'm just saying I'm going to use those words, because, you know, people come to a rabbi and a clergyman, and when they're down and out, hopefully they come when they want to be uplifted also in Judaism, but, you know, we are counselors in our own right. But that idea that, you know, I put a little bit word in success is from God, but, you know, you could thank God for success, but failures, you know, they say, well, that's God's fault. But, you know, saying, well, it's really, you know, you have to look at yourself and to see how to change yourself. And, you know, God will help you, but you can't just dump, why did he do this to me, you know?
Right.
What did you do wrong? So
I could never recommend anybody following my path or seeking out any kind of failure, but I can tell you that in a weird sort of way, my failures have been my best assets, because I learned so much about myself, and by, believe it or not, as much as I didn't want to be in the insurance business, it turned out to be the best possible fit for me in terms of my ability to earn a living, a lifestyle that is a very comfortable lifestyle, giving me time and opportunity to do other things. It fits my personality better than any other thing.
With this book, you can be a motivational or inspirational speaker. I mean, you can go on that circuit. I mean, because this book really brings out something in people that, you know, makes them feel worthy.
I hope so. That's my greatest wish.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that, you know, if you wanted a new career, you can go on that circuit. But, you know, I always said, look, if you don't have money, give me your time. If you don't have the time, I want your money. And I say that to, you know, when I work for so many groups, and that's what I've always said. You know, I need volunteers. So if you don't have the money, we'll get you into the event, but I want you to come and work for it and volunteer. And people do that. And I get them into the event, because there are a lot of people who buy tickets who don't show up, and I use those tickets to get people into an event for free. Because, well, not necessarily for free, because time is money also. And people do that. So that's how I work on it. I just have one last question for you. What was your style in terms of writing the book? How did you have a lot of notes? Did you put, everyone
I had
their
a
own
great
style.
deal of assistants who have to be acknowledged. First of all, Paul Grondel, who's a terrific writer. And Paul and I worked for almost 3 years on the main manuscript. And basically, I mentioned that this came out of a lecture that I've given. So I can literally speak in front of a classroom for 3 hours or more, which is what I did. And I spent hours and hours working with Paul and telling him my story.
Okay.
He took my words as a great writer and reporter and turned them into a manuscript. It was a very long manuscript,
so it wasn't-
hundreds of pages.
So it was you verbalizing your thoughts to him?
Absolutely,
And then
credit
he
where
turned it
due.
into this?
Well, he turned it into the original manuscript.
and
Then
then-
I read the manuscript,
Right.
and I said, okay, remember, it's my words, it wasn't Paul's.
Sure.
It wasn't ready to be a book, and it was way too long.
Uh-huh.
I then engaged the service of a dear friend of mine, Tim Cahill, as editor. And Tim and I spent over 2 years
Okay.
going through every word
Right.
and editing, and we turned over 250 pages into about 110,
Right.
realizing that I'm unknown. I mean, who knows me outside of a few people in this community? I would not want to impose such a big text, and I figured if I handed you a 250-page book and you didn't know me, are you going to read it? Chances are not.
Even if I knew you? No.
If you look at this,
Yeah.
what most people say when they receive it is, oh, you know, I could read that on the train.
Right.
And which is exactly, it's, you know, a train ride to New York City and you're done.
Well, I look at it and say, you didn't fail so much because it was too thin. It's like, I was hoping for more failing stories.
Well, I'm not dead yet, so.
Well, anyway, but when you got into the insurance business, you really had to take exams and you had to
It was a
do
long
all that.
haul.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't, I don't
It
want
took
people
me
to think
6
that-
years, over 6 years, to
get-
learn the technical aspects of the business, to learn the nuances of the business, to get people to trust me in this business. You know, people know and trust me,
Right.
but
That's
they didn't
why
know
they
whether I
have
was
to give
selling
them money.
cheese or
Right.
T-shirts or asking for money for the Alumni Association. They didn't, well, what are you doing now, Lobel?
That's right.
So it really, you know, insurance, you've got to have a lot of trust in your insurance agent.
Right.
But it's got to be based on experience
Right.
and knowledge,
And
and so
because they
I
give
had to
them all their
accumulate
money,
that
yeah.
stuff first.
So with me, the people have said, and I don't know if you were one of them, but people have said every 6 months, you know, I have a new business card. Because I'm always doing a new business, I'm always doing something
Exactly.
new. And
Well, after a while, it becomes a challenge.
it becomes funny.
So now what I did, though, was I converted all this experience, and I actually built my success in the insurance business by working with young entrepreneurs
Right.
starting emerging technology companies.
Okay.
And I went to them. There was no money in it for me, but there were dynamic, young, brilliant people
Right.
building businesses, and I wanted to be part of that. So I got vicarious pleasure out of it. And by the way, the companies that I chose to be my clients, I was able to offer them much more than insurance. It was advice and mentoring about
So you
business
didn't
and
take
life.
stock in the company for them?
I do now. Now I'm an angel investor.
Okay.
But no, at that time, you can't take stock. You'd have to buy it. I didn't have any money to invest.
No, but okay, because I worked with Bob Schwartz on a couple of my business dealings with
Yeah.
statewide news
Yeah.
service. So I know
That's
about the
different
stock
situation.
end of it.
Insurance
Yeah, okay.
works differently than
Okay.
that.
So-
but I
And
now
Bob wrote-
invest.
and Bob wrote a blurb for your book, and Karen Hitchcock wrote a
Yes.
blurb for your book,
And
and
David-
David Allen Miller. So when you write your next book, maybe I'll have the honor of writing a blurb.
Well, the next book is going to be about other people's stories.
Other people's stories? I
Yes.
have my book, and you can write about my story and my failures.
about the failures?
I have a lot of failures too, you know.
We all do.
We all do.
Right, Steve,
so.
it's very good. You know, I'm going to read the book, and I
hope you do.
everybody else does also, because everybody has bumps in the road, and you know, and a lot of people get down on themselves, and they just know
Yes.
this is just another way to pick themselves up and even go
That's
further.
my greatest hope. Yes.
You know, I just feel
Excellent.
as attitude that's really leads to the success part.
That's a perfect word. I have a big sign over my desk that says attitude is everything. And if you think about it, among all the things in our life, the one thing you can control every day is your attitude,
Yeah.
more than anything.
Excellent. On that note,
Okay.
over here, we have to say goodbye, and we'll come
Steve,
back. You're going to come back with your new book, and
All right.
we'll have a new review. But great success
Thank you.
without any failure. Over here.
Continued success, yes.
Thank you.